Welcome back, everyone. Today, I won't take up too much of your time because we have an important deep dive, The Echoes of Eternity, a timeless search for the purpose of life by Dr. Khan. It's truly amazing and not to be missed. Make sure to share it, as it offers valuable insights worth spreading. Hey everyone, before we get started, I noticed in my YouTube channel analytics that many of you watching aren't subscribed. If you could do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. It motivates me and helps the channel grow, so I can create more videos like the one you're about to see. Also, as some of you requested, my team has launched a website where you can read my books and find transcripts of all my videos in the form of small booklets. The link is in video description. We're working hard to produce informative videos daily, along with books and transcripts. I'd love your help in spreading Dawah, calling to Allah's message. Please click the join button to show your support. Now, let's dive in.
All right, so we're diving into Echoes of Eternity by Dr. Mohammad Humayoun Khan today.
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. We're going to be talking about some pretty big stuff. I mean, we're talking the universe, existence, the purpose of life, and we're going to be looking at it all through, well, kind of two lenses, right?
Right.
Islamic thought and modern science.
Exactly. You know, one of the things that really struck me about this book is how relevant it feels today, especially with, more and more people, especially younger folks, kind of moving away from traditional religion.
That's right, the rise of atheism.
Exactly. But here's the interesting thing, and Dr. Khan points this out.
Yeah.
While some folks are leaving Islam, you've got others who are like coming back to it.
Really?
Yeah, reverting or converting. And apparently this is happening in other faiths too.
Huh. Interesting.
It is. There's this hadith that he quotes that I think kind of gets at the whole thing. It says, "Toward the end times, a person will be a believer in the morning and a disbeliever by evening."
Wow. I mean, talk about a struggle.
Yeah.
That's a whole new level of doubt, right?
Yeah, it really speaks to, the kind of uncertainty and questioning that a lot of people are going through these days.
Makes sense. So where does Dr. Khan go from there?
Well, he kicks things off with a bang. Literally.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The Big Bang. That whole idea of the universe exploding into existence from
nothing.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Totally. But, the Quran actually seems to line up with that concept.
Really? I mean, the Quran's, what, 1,400 years old?
Yeah, give or take. But Dr. Khan points to verses like 21.30,
Okay.
which talks about the heavens and earth being a single entity before being separated. And then there's 51.47.
Okay.
That talks about the universe expanding.
Expanding.
Yeah, it uses the phrase, "we are making it vast."
Huh. So it does kind of sound like it's describing, I don't know, like a continuous expansion.
Right. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is, but then it brings us to that age-old question.
Oh, yeah, the big one.
How can something come from nothing? I mean, that's been the sticking point for, forever, right?
Totally. And it's one that atheists often use to challenge the idea of a creator,
Right. So how does Dr. Khan address that?
Well, he gets into some pretty complex stuff, like quantum fluctuations.
Okay, those tiny particles that pop in and out of existence.
Exactly. But he doesn't just stop there. He's like, hold on, even with quantum fluctuations, you still need a massive amount of energy to kickstart the whole universe thing.
Makes sense.
Right, like where did that initial burst of energy come from? Quantum fluctuations alone might not explain it.
Okay, so then what?
He uses this really powerful analogy from the Quran. Verse 24.39. It compares trying to find answers without acknowledging a creator to chasing a mirage in the desert. You think you see water, you run towards it, desperate for it.
But it's not really there.
Nope. Just an illusion, leaving you more thirsty than before.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful image.
Right. It really gets to the heart of his argument.
So even with stuff like the multiverse theory, infinite universes coexisting.
Yeah.
The question of why something exists at all, that still lingers.
Exactly. Science might explain how things work, but the why, that might be beyond its reach.
I like that. Okay, another question that kind of blows my mind. Are we alone out there? I mean, think about it.
Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars. It's overwhelming.
It really is. And Dr. Khan even brings up a verse from the Quran, 65.12, that hits at multiple Earths.
And ongoing revelations, too. So it's not just about other planets, but maybe other forms of life with their own unique connection to the divine.
Okay, that's a lot to take in.
It is. And there's this really cool story about Ibn Abbas.
Who's that?
He was a close companion of Prophet Muhammad, known for his knowledge. Someone asked him about this verse.
About the multiple Earths.
Yeah. And at first, he hesitated, said explaining it might lead to disbelief. Can you imagine?
Seriously. He wouldn't explain it.
Eventually he did. He suggested that the verse alluded to other planets with intelligent beings, each with their own prophets and revelations.
Whoa, so like a universe teeming with life, all connected to God in their own way.
It's a pretty radical idea even today.
It is. It completely changes how we think about our place in the cosmos.
Right. It's not all about us, We're not the center of everything.
Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, that there is all this life out there.
All these civilizations spread across the vastness of space.
Right. What's the point? I mean, what's the meaning of it all from an Islamic perspective?
Well, Dr. Khan dives into the 5 potential reasons for creation that are outlined in the Quran.
Okay.
And a big one, a central theme, is love. Love for the Creator. There's a verse, 51.56, that says humankind was created to worship God.
Right.
But Dr. Khan emphasizes that worship, in its truest sense, isn't just about rituals.
Yeah, going through the motions.
Right. It's about expressing that deep, heartfelt connection with the divine. A profound love, basically.
I like that. But then why free will? If we were made to worship, why weren't we just programmed to do it?
That's a great question. And it gets at the heart of the whole free will debate, right? Dr. Khan argues that without free will, true worship wouldn't mean anything.
I guess it'd be like a robot following its programming, no real choice involved.
Exactly. He uses this really interesting thought experiment. Imagine you're in a spaceship, billions of light years from Earth, completely isolated.
Okay.
Can you escape those inner whispers, those temptations, Even in complete solitude, we still have that capacity to choose.
Between right and wrong.
Yeah. So it's like this. Free will, it's not bound by time or space.
It's part of who we are at our core.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that idea of the world as a testing ground, a place where we exercise that free will, face the consequences.
And those choices, they're not always these big life-altering decisions, right?
Right. They're in the everyday stuff, too.
Little things.
Our interactions, relationships, our work. Every moment's a chance to choose. Compassion, honesty, to resist temptation.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is, but it's also incredibly empowering. We're not just watching the show, we're writing the script, at least in part. We're shaping our own destinies, playing a role in this grand unfolding of God's plan,
I do. Okay, so let's tackle a topic that honestly gets a lot of people riled up. Evolution.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Definitely a point of tension for some folks.
For sure. How does Dr. Khan handle that?
He's very clear. The Quran does not support that whole sudden creation thing.
You mean like humans just appearing out of nowhere?
Exactly. That's not how it's presented in the Quran. He emphasizes this phrase that pops up again and again.
What phrase?
Creation with truth. Not miracles, not magic, but truth.
Okay. What's he getting at there?
He's saying that God created the laws of nature, the very foundation of the universe, and life. Well, life arose through those laws, through a process that we understand as evolution.
So it's not evolution versus God, but evolution is part of God's design.
Precisely. It's a testament to God's power and wisdom, establishing this system that allows life to emerge, change, diversify over eons.
That makes a lot of sense. But then what about the details? Like, does the Quran lay out the specifics of the evolutionary process?
Not really. It focuses more on the big picture.
The overall narrative.
Right. Creation of the universe, life emerging from water, humans developing their unique role. It's like the Quran's giving us the framework, not the step-by-step instructions.
Okay, so where does that narrative actually start in the Quran?
Well, you've got verse 21.3 talking about the creation of the universe and life coming from water.
Water.
Yeah. Which, lines up with both the Big Bang and what we understand about life originating in those ancient oceans.
So it all starts in the water. But it doesn't happen overnight.
Right. There's this verse, 76.1, that talks about a time when humans were nothing worth mentioning. Like we were still developing, evolving,
It wasn't just, poof, humans exist, fully formed.
Nope. A long, slow process. Gradual development.
And there are other verses that back that up.
Oh, yeah. Verses 71.14 and 71.17, for example, they talk about humans growing by stages from the earth.
By stages. So it's definitely painting a picture of this gradual, ongoing process of change.
Right. Constant refinement, I guess you could say.
Okay, so I have to ask, where do Adam and Eve fit into all of this?
The million-dollar question. Well, Dr. Khan acknowledges their story in the Quran, but he points out that their presence on Earth doesn't necessarily contradict the whole evolution thing.
Really?
Yeah. You've got verses like 2.3 and 2.35 that talk about God intending to place a viceroy on Earth.
A viceroy.
Yeah, it's an interesting term, like a representative, a leader within the existing ecosystem.
So maybe it's not about Adam and Eve being literally the first humans.
Right.
But maybe the start of a specific lineage.
Exactly. Chosen for a particular purpose within this like bigger tapestry of human evolution. And there's another verse, 3.33, that mentions God preferring Adam's lineage above others. It makes you wonder if there were other human groups around at the same time, you know?
Wow, so we're talking about coexisting human lineages. That opens up a whole new can of worms.
It does. But it's also a reminder that the Quran uses symbolic language a lot. It's up to us to dig deeper, to uncover those hidden meanings.
I like that. Okay, so let's flip this around for a second. What if we ditch the whole God thing? Like, what are the implications of a purely materialistic worldview?
That's where Dr. Khan brings up this idea of the devil's matrix.
The devil's matrix. Sounds intense.
It is. It's basically the idea that in a world without God, where everything's about personal pleasure and self-interest, things can get pretty messy.
Okay, I can see that.
Right, like no ultimate accountability, no real moral compass. He compares it to a virus spreading through a network.
Oh, so like one person's actions can have these huge unintended consequences.
Exactly. He even talks about things like STDs, how choices we make in our personal lives can have these ripple effects that impact others, even future generations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It all comes down to accountability. In a world without God, where morality is kind of up for grabs, who's responsible for what?
Good point.
Right.
Right.
But in a world created with truth, as the Quran puts it, there's this sense of order, of cause and effect. Choices matter, not just for us, but for the whole world.
Okay, I'm with you. But before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, maybe we should take a break here for now.
Sounds good. We've covered a lot of ground already. But trust me, there's a lot more to unpack in Echoes of Eternity. We'll be back with part 2 soon.
You know, before we move on, I'm still thinking about that devil's matrix thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept, isn't it?
It is. Like, what did Dr. Khan really mean by that? Was he talking about, like, an actual matrix?
Not really, no. It's more about, like, seeing how everything's connected. Our choices, our actions, all of it. Especially when people don't really believe in God or any kind of higher power. You know?
Right, so like no moral compass to guide them?
Exactly. And in that kind of world, he's saying, well, things can go south pretty fast.
So one person's actions can have these huge ripple effects.
Yeah, exactly. He uses this analogy of a virus spreading through a network.
Oh, I get it. Like one little thing can cause a whole lot of chaos.
Precisely. He even brings up STDs as an example.
Oh, right. How our personal choices can have these far-reaching consequences.
Exactly. Affecting not just us, but other people too.
Even future generations.
Right. And it all comes back to this idea of accountability, which is a big deal in Islam.
So we're not just responsible for ourselves, but for others too.
Yeah, like we have a duty to look out for each other, you know?
I can see that. But in a world where people don't believe in God, those lines get kind of blurry, don't they?
They do. But the Quran keeps saying that the world was created with truth.
Truth. So there's like an inherent order to things.
Right, like a cause and effect kind of thing. Our choices matter, not just here and now, but in the bigger picture too.
Okay, so switching gears a bit, I'm really curious about that creature of the earth thing from verse 27.82.
Ah, yes, that's a fascinating one.
You hinted that it might be connected to AI, which sounds super futuristic.
It does, doesn't it? But honestly, with how fast technology is moving, it's not that far-fetched.
True.
Dr. Khan sees it as a warning, you know?
About AI.
Yeah. He thinks this creature of the earth could represent these AI beings we're creating. Like entities made of silicon, not flesh and blood.
So they can think and communicate, but they don't have souls.
Right. No souls. And that's where the danger lies, according to Dr. Khan.
What did he mean?
Well, if these AI things become really advanced, what's to stop them from turning against us?
Oh, like a sci-fi movie gone bad.
Exactly. He's worried about this conflict, you know, humans versus machines, and who knows how that would play out.
Not good, probably.
Probably not. But it's a good reminder that just because we can do something doesn't mean we should.
We need to think about the consequences.
Absolutely. Progress without wisdom can be pretty dangerous.
Okay, so let's talk about the big stuff now. Life, death, the afterlife. What does the Quran say about all that?
Well, the Day of Judgment is a big deal in Islam.
Right, that final reckoning.
Exactly. And Dr. Khan, he connects it to this massive cosmic event, like a final earthquake.
An earthquake.
Yeah. And he suggests that it could be so powerful that it actually reverses gravity.
Hold on, reverse gravity, like things falling up.
Yeah, kind of a mind-bending idea, right?
Totally. But how does that tie into the Day of Judgment?
Well, some physicists believe that reversing gravity could also reverse time.
Whoa. Okay, now I'm really lost.
It's all very theoretical, but basically Dr. Khan proposes that this time reversal could bring the dead back to life.
Like a giant cosmic rewind button.
Exactly. Bringing everything back to a previous state.
So a physical resurrection, not just spiritual.
Right. He emphasizes that the Quran talks about a bodily resurrection, like we get our bodies back and we experience the full consequences of our actions.
Okay, that makes more sense. So this earthquake, it's not a gradual thing, right?
No, it's a sudden, dramatic event.
Like flipping a switch.
Exactly. And Dr. Khan even suggests that it could create portals, like openings in space-time.
Portals, like to other dimensions.
Yeah, maybe. He compares them to wormholes in physics, those theoretical tunnels that connect different points in space-time.
So imagine these wormholes opening up, pulling people from Earth into heaven or hell.
It's a pretty wild image, isn't it? But again, the Quran uses a lot of symbolic language.
So the real message is about accountability.
Exactly. Our actions have consequences both in this life and the next. And one day, we'll have to answer for those choices.
It's a bit sobering, but also, I don't know, kind of hopeful. Like, we have the power to shape our own destinies.
Absolutely. We're not just puppets, you know? We have agency, and our choices matter.
Okay, so what about heaven and hell? Are those actual places, or are they more like states of being?
The Quran paints a beautiful picture of paradise, with gardens and rivers and all these amazing things. It does, but Dr. Khan emphasizes that these descriptions are mostly symbolic.
So it's not about literally sitting on clouds and playing harps.
Not necessarily. It's more about a feeling, a state of pure bliss and closeness to God, like ultimate fulfillment.
In hell, is it all fire and brimstone?
The Quran does talk about fire, but again, Dr. Khan suggests it's more about the inner experience.
The spiritual suffering.
Exactly. Separation from God, feeling regret and remorse for the choices we made.
So it's not really about physical pain, but about this deeper anguish.
Right. And God, being both merciful and just, he tailors the punishment or reward to fit the individual. You know?
Okay, so it was like a cosmic balancing act.
Yeah, kind of. And the Quran's always reminding us that this life is preparation for the next.
Our actions here have eternal consequences.
Exactly. So we need to think about the choices we make, the impact they have on our souls.
A lot to ponder for sure.
It is. And it really gets at the core of what it means to be human, doesn't it? We're not just physical beings, we're spiritual beings too.
Yeah.
And our choices, they have the power to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us as well.
Powerful stuff. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of heavy concepts. Time travel, the Day of Judgment, heaven and hell. Where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think one of the biggest takeaways is that we need to be open to new ideas, to see how science and spirituality can actually complement each other.
To look for those points of connection.
Exactly, and to remember that we're all part of this incredible cosmic story.
A story that's still being written.
Right, and our choices, they have a real impact on how that story unfolds, so we need to choose wisely.
Wise words.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up this deep dive into Echoes of Eternity. Thanks for joining us. We hope this has sparked some deep thinking and maybe even inspired you to explore these ideas further. Man, this book, Echoes of Eternity, it really gets you thinking.
Doesn't it?
It does. We've talked about some pretty wild stuff, you know, like the Big Bang, AI taking over the world, even like time travel.
It's a lot to process.
It is. It is. And that whole idea of the Day of Judgment being triggered by this massive earthquake.
Yeah, that one really sticks with you.
It does. It's like straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, you know?
It's definitely a vivid image.
It is. And then Dr. Khan connects it to like a reversal of gravity and maybe even time itself. I mean, how does that even work?
Well, he's kind of bridging science and spirituality there, right?
Okay.
Like, he's looking at those descriptions in the Quran and seeing some interesting parallels with, you know, things like wormholes and those theories about how gravity can affect time.
So he's not saying science proves the Quran, but that there are these like fascinating points of overlap.
Exactly. It's about keeping an open mind, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers yet.
Right. Like, what if science is just scratching the surface of what's really out there?
That's a good question.
It is. It is. Okay, so let's circle back to the afterlife. The Quran talks about heaven and hell. But as we've discussed, Dr. Khan kind of sees those descriptions as more symbolic than literal, right?
Yeah, like with paradise.
Okay.
It's not so much about the physical stuff, the gardens and rivers and all that. It's more about the experience, the feeling of being close to God, completely at peace.
Like pure bliss.
Exactly. A level of joy and contentment we can't even imagine here on Earth.
Okay, and what about hell? Is it really a place of fire and torture?
Again, Dr. Khan leans towards a symbolic interpretation.
So it's not about physical pain.
Not really. He says the real suffering comes from that separation from God, from knowing you've messed up, made the wrong choices.
It's that, like, deep regret.
Yeah, that spiritual anguish. And remember, God's both merciful and just. He takes everything into account.
Right. Our good deeds, our bad deeds, the whole mixture.
Exactly. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
And the Quran's always reminding us, this life is a test, a preparation for what comes next.
Our actions here matter.
They do. They echo into eternity, you know?
That's a powerful thought.
It is. And it leads us to this idea of building a spiritual legacy.
Oh, hey, what does that mean?
It's about realizing that our choices, our actions, they have this ripple effect.
They impact others.
Yeah, not just now, but in the future, too. We're weaving this tapestry, you know, and our choices, they determine what kind of threads we're adding to it.
Threads of good or evil.
Exactly. It's about contributing to something bigger than ourselves, something that will outlast our time on Earth.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main message for our listeners?
I think it's about remembering that we're all connected.
To each other, to God.
Yeah, to everything. And that our choices, they have real power. They shape not just our own lives, but the world around us, even the future.
So choose wisely.
Choose wisely. And remember, this journey, it doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep searching for that truth.
Great advice. Well, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Echoes of Eternity. Thanks for joining us on this mind-bending exploration. We hope it's given you some things to ponder, maybe even inspired you to learn more. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep growing, keep striving to be the best version of yourselves. Peace.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.